How's it going, everybody? This is Rob Novakast back with another video for you guys, and with this one we'll be doing another review of the Alien franchise. And I gotta say, this is the one that might be my least favorite, and I say that because to an extent it kind of ruins the mystique of the Alien for me. But anyways, Alien Covenant, released in 2017, directed by Ridley Scott and written by Dan O'Bannon, Ronald Shizette, and Jack Pegley. Now, once again, this one is a continuation of, or at least just so you guys know, for those who don't know, this is the sequel to Prometheus. And to an extent, like I said, it basically kind of ruins the mystique or mystery of the Alien. And I'm not particularly happy with that. So, what happens? Is it good? Is it bad? I mean, with my current reaction, you could probably guess how I feel about it. But either way, let's go ahead and get right into this. So, I guess to talk about story, I guess point by point and kind of clip noting it, we follow a crew on the ship called the Covenant, who, after having a brief accident, or if anything, something happened to the ship where they lose several colonists as well as a crew member who was their captain, they receive a beacon from an unknown source, which leads them to a planet that could be inhabitable for humans. They go to investigate, though things start going awry immediately when two of their members become infected with a parasitic spore, as well as bursting out alien organisms. And in the midst of the chaos, they do end up meeting David, who apparently has been stranded on this particular planet for 10 years. And following after that, it's uncovered that he's been doing a lot of science on the planet, creating and destroying organisms to create the perfect being, which to an extent his efforts pay off when a idiot decides to, yeah, I know the character has a name, but to an extent I'm calling him an idiot, decides, hey, let's put my face in front of a egg that I don't know about, and then proceed to get attacked by a facehugger, creating the first xenomorph, or as it's called, the protomorph, which honestly, that is a stupid fucking name, if you ask me anyway. The last remaining crew members, who are, trying to survive, manage to escape, and to an extent it involves, them having to face off against another protomorph that somehow manages to get on the ship. They destroy it or launch it into space, and sure enough, it seems all well and good until they find out, oh, what a shock. Which, by the way, they have a synthetic that looks like David from the first movie, and David played a kind of, switcheroo, and by the end of it, it's revealed that David destroyed the other synthetic and took over the Covenant, and now has an entire colony ship worth of test subjects to test his, his alien, and see how that goes. All in all, the story, I mean, to an extent, I would love to talk about the story a little bit more, but as kind of like what happened with Prometheus, a lot of what happens is due to kind of stupid decisions. It really is. Especially with this situation where after they figure out where the beacon came from, the guy who becomes the captain after their previous captain died, who by the way is played by James Franco, and I'm gonna have a rant about him in a second. Immediately after being told, this could be a danger, to go check it out and to just stay on course to where they need to go, he's like, oh no, fuck all you, I'm gonna do whatever I want. Had this like real high horse about him, and just like, nope, fuck all your guys' concerns, fuck all the safety protocols, we're gonna go check this place out. And is even as smug when they go on the planet, and at first seems like it's okay. So to an extent, this could all, actually, if anything, it could have all been avoided if the one asshole decided to not throw a power trip. Just saying. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about characters. Now, there's only a couple that I really want to talk about, because to an extent, they have more weight into the story. And then one that I'm going to actually rant about, to an extent. First of all, Michael Fassbender. He plays kind of the same synthetic, but two different names. But their personalities are completely different. Whereas, to an extent, just kind of briefly talking about them, Walter and David. Walter is absent of emotion, though to an extent cares about the well-being of his crewmates. There's actually a really cool moment after the captain is killed, or after this whole situation with their ship is finished. He assists Daniels and has a good chat with her, trying to comfort her a little bit, which I will admit is a good scene, or at least one of the good scenes in my opinion, before everything goes to shit. Whereas David is, and by the way, they kind of bring up the fact that also Walter is absent of creation. He can't create, or is incapable of, feeling human. And I guess that became a defect for David, because to an extent, they make a remark about how David was too human. David is very unhinged. To an extent, he's capable of lying. He's capable of, I mean that was present in the previous film, but to the extent where he will literally use anything and anybody to get what he wants, including an android who he claims he cares for. And to an extent, it does seem like that, especially for the very end. Now, going further, we also have Catherine Waterson, who plays Daniels. Daniels is, to an extent, a knockoff of Ripley. At least that's how I feel. She's the stick in the mud. I mean, as we start, she's the stick in the mud. She's the one who basically objects to the captain's moronic decision to go to an unknown transmission and put the whole crew in jeopardy. We have Daniel McBride, who plays Tennessee, who honestly, a couple times, is fun to watch. And to an extent, a lot of the other characters, I am not going to take the opportunity to talk about, because each and every one of them, unfortunately, are cannon fodder for both the neomorph and the protomorph. So, fun. I will, however, talk about James Franco. And a lot of people watching wouldn't know that James Franco was in here unless you actually paid close attention to this one particular scene, as well as paid close attention to the pod that the captain was in. Because right off the bat, and which, by the way, in some things that he's in, James Franco is a good actor. So it kind of weirded me out a little bit that they decided to only give this character, this actor, only a few seconds of screen time, and to go out in probably the most horrible way. Which, to an extent, I'm hoping, like, this isn't just a joke. I'm hoping that they paid him a ton of money for just those several seconds of footage, because I'm sure if he barely got anything, he would have been pissed. Especially with this being an alien film. But anyway, so to an extent, there are a few characters. Actually, if anything, there were two actors that do a really good job. But when it comes down to everything else, or at least a lot of the other characters, again, it's an alien film. It's a monster film. I'm not going to get the time to actually get to know these characters. A lot of them are just cannon fodder. So honestly, it sucks that you don't get to know a lot of these people. But whatever. So besides some of the sets and locations, I feel like most of it was CGI. I could be wrong, but to an extent, that's what it seems like, especially when you're watching it, and I've watched it a couple times. The designs for the Neomorph and the Protomorph are pretty cool. Also, there's, to an extent, for the Protomorph, it seems more organic, and even though it's CGI, it still looks amazing. And as well as, especially with it being full CGI, they do a lot more with the movement of the creature, as well as do a lot of really interesting stuff, especially with it being in 2017, where, with lighting and just everything, it kind of make it seem like it's there in that general area of whatever location that they're in. Some of the shots or CG shots of the Covenant in space are pretty cool. I think, if anything, probably one of my favorite space shots was when you have Tennessee, which again was played by Daniel McBride, trying to reattach these solar sails. That was one of the really cool space shots, as well as them trying to head towards the planet where they found the beacon. I will admit, that was pretty good. Going further, I don't think anything else that I can think of other than... Actually, no, I can't think of anything else. But regardless, CGI actually looks great to an extent. And it's sad. I will admit that it's sad that there's not as much practical effect besides, what we see with landscape or location. So this time around, the music or score was produced by Jed Corzel. However, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of sounds similar to a lot of other stuff. And I know that's the first time I've ever said that, but to an extent, it's just sounds similar to a lot of stuff that we've heard. Actually, if anything, it's more of nostalgic to what we've heard with previous films. I think especially towards like Alien or Aliens, I should say. Now, there are references to other music as well. Like, for instance, during or when they come across the beacon, it's uncovered, or discovered, I should say, that it's references the song Country Road, which honestly is a really good song. And going further through the movie, they find out that that song was used to help run the ship, because to an extent, and this is something if I forgot to mention last movie review, I do apologize. But to an extent, the space jockey ships were controlled or by sound to a degree, or at least that's how they were activated. So to an extent, having characters sing to the ship was actually a really interesting concept. Also, a score or musical number that is kind of referenced a couple times in the film plays the significance, especially to the character David, that being the entry of the gods into Valhalla, which to an extent is a beautiful piece. And honestly, again, it plays a significance to David's character, especially with his ideals and how he feels about humanity, as well as, you know, creation and so on. So to an extent, the song itself is a good choice, as well as, you know, the basically the composer that they chose as well to create music that was, if not similar, but nostalgic to what we've heard before. So, to kind of start this off, I kind of want to make a suggestion, or what could have been, honestly, a better idea. And I'm no writer, I'm no, you know, script writer or anything, but hear me out. To help the story a little bit, it would have been cool if maybe to an interesting degree, if instead of, you know, the planet that they visit and the planet that they're trying to get to were two separate planets, just make them into one planet. Maybe near the beginning, we had a little bit more idea of the characters, so that way we can get more invested into them, as well as feel more for when each of them perish. And again, this is just my thoughts and ideas, but hear me out. After the initial incident, we periodically see them go through this, what was, I guess, recounted as 7 more years in space. Them maybe periodically getting up, you know, making sure everything's okay. Walter, you know, still managing the ship. And to a degree, they finally get to the planet they are supposed to arrive to. However, it turns out that that is the same planet that David is on, as well as maybe perhaps with it being like how as long as it's been for them to travel to this particular planet, they don't realize that David has, you know, crashed there, has corrupted the planet, and all of the life, the initial life, is gone. At least, you know, to an extent where it seems like it's a barren planet. And if anything, that's where things start to happen. Where we see the neomorphs, the spores, and initially, as much as I hate it, to an extent, we have this whole situation where, you know, David created the protomorph. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not particularly happy with that initial plot line, which is why I treat Prometheus and Alien Covenant as its own, I guess, universe to an extent, because to this whole situation, especially with, you know, kind of setting it up where David was the one that created the alien, it just removes the mystique of the alien, the initial unknowingness as well as fear of the alien. I hate, and I know for a lot of things I usually reference this, but to an extent I think it says a lot. For those who don't know, or at this point aren't going to, because people are going to be ignorant to an extent, especially when it comes down to politics. And I'm trying not to make this political, but I'm making my point. H.P. Lovecraft once made the quote that the oldest and greatest emotion is fear, and the oldest and greatest fear is fear of the unknown. For the longest time, especially for the alien films, we have never seen an actual origin of the alien, where they come from, what planet they originate from, and all that. To an extent, that has always been kept a mystery, which always added to the fear, especially since these things not only are built to be the perfect killing machine, but to an extent, they have no morals, no emotions, and they will kill you without a second thought. Or, if anything, use you as a breeding host to make more aliens. So to an extent, they don't care. Where they came from was non-existent, and that's what added to the fear. However, at this point now, it's set up where David, the android, created the alien. Which I think a lot of people agree with me that that is not a particularly good plot line to go with. But whatever. They did it. It's done. And for me personally, it marks a few points off my initial rating. Story-wise, now going into final thoughts. Story, it all can be chalked up to idiot made stupid decision, got everybody killed. Characters, I didn't get much time to get emotionally attached to them, so a lot of them were, again, cannon fodder for the aliens. CGI, or effects, mostly CGI besides a few things that would, or very few things that would classify as practical effect. Music, nostalgic, and a couple of good random choices that add to the story and plot. So, all in all, I will admit it has some good points, but unfortunately for me, the bad kind of overweighs the good. So, to a degree, it's not my cup of tea. And honestly, if this is the last Alien film, which I doubt it is, it doesn't hold up for me. So, with that being said, final thoughts for Alien Covenant. Unfortunately, I gotta give it a 2 out of 10. It's not the best movie for me. I know some people are going to think I'm being really biased, but to an extent, I'm looking at it as well as looking at story and characters and so on. And to a degree, it's just typical. I kind of wish they would have done more. And that's why I started off with the, with the final thoughts of, kind of giving an idea of what could have been better. But to an extent, that's not what we went with. So, anyway, once again, 2 out of 10. Final rating for Alien Covenant. And with that, that was my review of Alien Covenant. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have anything you think I should have added or would like to add, leave in the comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, links are in the description down below, as well as check out our daily content and the weekly podcast. With that being said, this is Rob Novakast signing off. Have a good one, take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Find